Welcome to the Imig Sports Network, broadcasting from Imig AI Studios in St. Louis, Missouri. Now, your host, Pat Imig.
Welcome into the show. It's football. My name is Pat Imig, and it is the Imig Sports Network, streaming in podcast form wherever you get your podcasts, and of course in video form right on YouTube at Get Pissin'. Follow all of our socials at Get Pissin'. Get the Imig Sports Network. Go on and get. The Miami Dolphins fired their general manager, Chris Grier, and Stephen A. Smith cannot believe Chris Grier was the first one to go. In fact, Stephen A. Smith thinks the decision was racially motivated.
That's the first fire? Really? That's what we're doing? Well, what we've seen, what we just finished talking about. You know, there's things that need to be modified, et cetera, but the personnel that they have on their squad, although we're not happy with it, we didn't walk into this season thinking they were going to be trash. We looked at their roster and we said they got some potential. We'll see what happens. It was about Tua. It was about Mike McDaniel. And the brother get fired first. All I know is this. I better hear Mike McDaniel's name today.
Oh, my God.
I better hear Mike McDaniel's name today.
But
it better not be just Chris Grier. And I'm not saying that he don't deserve it because of the way they look. At the end, you at the helm. I got it. I understand it. Listen, I'm all for brothers as head coaches, GMs. We know what battles I've been fighting for over 30 years. Okay,
fighting the battles.
All right, but because when you don't get the job done, you don't get the damn job done. Period. I got it. Don't tell me it's just him. Don't tell me we gonna leave Mike McDaniels in place and we just gonna fire him and we gonna move forward. Damn that. I don't want to hear. I'm waiting for more news. I can't defend Chris Grier with some of the decisions that have been made personnel-wise. I got it. I understand it. It's unfortunate, but I got it. But I'll be damned if it gets to stop there. Oh, hell no.
So who wants to tell Stephen A. the secret? That Mike McDaniel's actually biracial. His father happens to be black. Grier's been the GM since 2016, and under his watch, the Dolphins made the playoffs 3 times and lost all 3 wildcard games. Grier's even been with the organization since 2000, which coincidentally is also the last time the Miami Dolphins won a playoff game. It's almost like Stephen A. was trying to pick up the load, usually carried by his ESPN colleague, Ryan Clark, who typically makes just as asinine comments on ESPN. This move is more about culture. The Dolphins have been searching for it ever since Don Shula retired. Right now, they're trapped somewhere between nostalgia for the 70s glory days, Marino madness of the 80s, and another rebuild that feels like deja vu. So, coming up shortly, pro football guru Russell Baxter will join us to talk about the Dolphins' long fall from grace, because really, the Miami Dolphins have something in common with the New York Jets and the Las Vegas Raiders, an owner who cares more about profits than the product on the field. He's Stephen Ross, and he's got a cast of celebrity owners just to keep things flashy. Dolphins fever, catch it. P.S. Now we know what the A in Stephen A. Smith stands for. Asinine.
Imig Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night.
Some people ask Chat GPT their football questions. We ask the guru, pro football guru Russell Baxter, on the Imig Sports Network. Yes, some people use Chat GPT, and others rely on the pro football guru Russell Baxter. Follow him on Twitter at Bax Football Guru, and by Twitter I mean X. I still call it Twitter. There's still tweets to me. Russell, we had a great week of football again as we're heading into week 10, and our first front office shakeup of the season with the Miami Dolphins. So you kind of alluded to this last week, kind of hinted at it, that, you know, the Dolphins, before the Steelers of the 70s, the Dolphins were kind of a premier franchise. And there's a lot there with the history of the franchise. So just kind of give the people the blank canvas lay of the land. What happened to the Miami Dolphins? Why are they in the current state that they're in?
Well, listen, they even in after the 70s run, remember, they were the first team to get the 3 straight Super Bowls. They lost to the Cowboys in Super Bowl 6, then went perfect in 72, and then followed it up with a back-to-back titles when they beat the Vikings in Super Bowl 8. Don Shula, if you really think about it, somewhat irreplaceable. Kept the Dolphins relevant. They weren't always great with Marino. They got to one Super Bowl in 84. Remember, he also got the Dolphins to the Super Bowl in the strike season when they played the Redskins. David Woodley was the starting quarterback and got replaced in that game. He was absolutely horrible. Marino, and they haven't been back to the Super Bowl since. I think what went wrong with them in terms of Marino, I'll break it down that way, is they tried to build around him. And even when Jimmy Johnson was there, and it seemed like there was a clash, Pat. Jimmy Johnson wanted to run the football. Dan Marino ran the football early in the season, the years Jimmy were there, and then all of a sudden they started throwing. And you can't throw your way to a title. You've got to have some sort of balance, and you got to have some sort of defense. And it ended ugly. 62-7 to the Jaguars in the playoffs was Dan's last game and Jimmy's last game as head coach. Dave Wannstedt took over.
And that was the Jaguars led by Mark Brunell and Fred Taylor.
Fred Taylor with, I believe, still the longest run in a playoff game, 90 yards. Think about this. They came in the league in 1995. They were in the playoffs the next 4 years under Tom Coughlin. 2 AFC championship game. That's why Tom Coughlin, hopefully one of these days, is going to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame with what he did with Jacksonville and obviously did with the Giants. Back to the Dolphins, who have not won a playoff game since 2000. Okay. When they beat the Colts in overtime. So long ago that the Colts were still in the AFC East in 2000 when it was a 5-team division. Beat them in overtime. Eventually lost to the Raiders in the divisional round. In recent years, and now Chris Grier, who's the gentleman who got fired, the general manager, he's only been the general manager since 2016. But had been with the organization since, coincidentally, 2000. And I think history in some ways repeated itself the last couple of years. They tried to build their team around a passing game. They have Jalen Waddle. They traded for Tyreek Hill. They have a quarterback with talent who's unfortunately a little undersized and has proven to be a little injury prone. The one thing the Dolphins have not done well at all in recent years is build the trenches. They're not a great defensive line. They're not a great offensive line. You need a great offensive line if you're going to protect that quarterback, and more so be consistent with the running game. I think Mike McDaniel has been spotty. And, when that rule change took place a couple of years ago, Pat, the motion of the receivers, which that seemed like that was Mike McDaniel's big trick. And they really haven't been. There've been a lot of screen passes, a lot of dump offs, not as much downfield. Of course, Tyreek Hill being out, that changes a lot of things. But they've been pushed around this year. They can't stop the run to save their lives. Chris Grier's the guy who built the team. It's hard to fire the coach in the middle of the season. It's really hard to fire the coach in the middle of the season when your best option as the interim is the defensive coordinator. Oh, the defense is pretty horrible this year. And the quarterback, what are you going to do? I would expect, I'd be surprised if McDaniel was back next year. I might be wrong, but I'd be surprised if McDaniel was back.
It's funny to think that 2 years ago, like this is how quickly things can change in the NFL. 2 years ago, the Miami Dolphins put 70 on the Denver Broncos and Sean Payton.
Yes, I knew that's where you were going to.
You did, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, because you just don't see it. 70 points on the board. But forgot to run the ball later in the year. And they were a fast fade. Their defense wore out. And they were like a creamsicle in the playoff loss to Kansas City. I mean, again, they haven't won a playoff game since 2000. They haven't won a division title since 2008.
That was
and the sad part about it, there are other teams that are in worse shape than they are. As far as the playoff win, they have the longest playoff win is the longest drought. The Jets hadn't been to the playoffs since what's left of the Jets after today. They haven't been to the playoffs since 2010. The Raiders haven't won a playoff game since 2002. And you just look at the front offices and the ownership of these teams, and these guys like Woody Johnson and Mark Davis and Stephen Ross are in the headlines for the wrong reasons. And I don't mean that because they're bad people.
Yeah.
But it's always because they're making some sort of change.
Well, it's not even just in Ross's case. He seems like he's more of a business owner than he is a football franchise owner, right? So like I think they're one of the first ones ever in the NFL to do like a split minority ownership, and they've got like celebrities who are part owners of the team. Now, that doesn't necessarily make them mean that you're a bad team, but it does kind of, give insight as to where the head of the owner is at, as opposed to just being a quote unquote football guy, right? I mean, and you have to say football guy that way when you say football guy.
Listen, have the Cowboys really been the same since Jimmy Johnson left? Even though Jerry Jones is the common denominator for 30 years.
Right.
And by the way, what was that last night? What was that last night at home against a team that had lost 5 games in a row?
I was telling Zach a couple weeks ago, the Dallas to me right this year is like the perfect level of Dallas entertainment, because you get enough of the offense to where the games are going to be entertaining, but they're not built to make the playoffs. They're built to hover around 500 and just kind of break the hearts of their fans. I do think that Jerry Jones, though, genuinely tries to put a winning team on the field. He just doesn't know how. Whereas Ross, I don't know that he genuinely tries.
No, I don't think too. I don't think Stephen Ross has any semblance of football. He's not a football guy. Jerry Jones is a football guy. I think Jerry's biggest problem a lot of times is he wants to be the one that fixes it. He wants the credit. He wants, it's not America's team. It's Jerry's team. Okay.
Right.
So
it's not the AT&T Stadium.
And listen, he's done a lot for the league. He's done a lot for the owners. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But for not to get to an NFC title game in 30 years is it's quite remarkable if you really think about it, considering the level of talent. And this is not a team that has been devoid of talent for large stints of time. They've always been very, very competitive, but obviously something keeps on missing. And now to watch them play defense, the only thing that's saving them this year as far as playing defense is the Cincinnati Bengals.
I was going to say the Bengals exist. So, and that's pretty much, if you're a quarterback in the NFL and you get to line up against the Cowboys or the Bengals, you're going to probably have a great day. That's for sure.
Well, I'm sure bettors all over the world are upset this week in terms of playing either team in an over, because both the Cowboys and the Bengals are off in week 10.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's can we revisit something that you brought up?
Sure.
Tom Coughlin not being in the Hall of Fame. To me, that's insanity. Mainly because I started to realize this guy has been a big game coach. And like you said, head coach, the first head coach in the Jaguars history, gets into the playoffs for 4 straight years, gets him to AFC championships, coaches the Giants, beats the Patriots twice. And I know it's not NFL, but even at the college level, Boston College defeating number 1 Notre Dame back in 93, I think it was, or 92.
Right.
That was an upset of the year. Like, this guy he's always been at the center of big time upsets. I think I was surprised to hear that you said that. As far as in my head, I just assumed he was in the Hall of Fame already.
Well, there's a lot of that, and the Hall needs to do a little tweaking with contributors and coaches. They've done a little too much tweaking in the opposite direction, but there's certainly been a groundswell for Coughlin to be in. There's no question about it. When you do it in 2 different places, one of the things about Bill Parcells being in, besides the 2 Super Bowl titles with the Giants and getting the Patriots to the Super Bowl, he's the only coach in NFL history to take 4 different teams to the playoffs. A handful of guys have done 3. He's done 4. And even though he wasn't the coach of the Dolphins in 2008, remember he was director of football operations in Miami. Got a Miami theme going here. Remember, the year before he got there, they were 1-15. The year after he got there with Tony Sperano, they were 11-5. 10-win turnaround is tied for the biggest turnaround in the history of the league.
So yeah, and he even thinking about his first year with the Cowboys in their first playoff appearance, I think they had Quincy Carter at quarterback. That team wasn't that good on paper.
No.
I mean, talent wise, which I guess just goes to show the football genius of him. So yeah, Tom Coughlin needs to be in the Hall of Fame. I think we both agree on that.
I think he'll get there one day. I think Mike Shanahan will be there one day. I mean, there's a little bit of a backlog right now, but there's been a backlog for the Hall of Fame since they started the Hall of Fame. Remember the NFL, it's the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and the NFL didn't come into existence until 1920, Pat. But the first year they started putting people in the Pro Football Hall of Fame was 1963. That's a 43-year gap.
Dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. From the tip off to the touchdown, I break it down. Sports talk, royalty, I wear the crown. Dynasties rise, legacies never.
Some people ask Chat GPT their football questions. We ask the guru, pro football guru Russell Baxter, on the Pat Imig Sports Network.
It was an interesting week in the NFC West. Okay, all 4 teams won. And all 4 teams won, I believe, by at least 10 points, pretty convincingly. The Niners beat the Giants by 10. Seattle embarrassed Washington. The Rams handled the Saints, and then we saw what we saw on Monday night. And then coincidentally, Pat, they're all playing each other this week in rematches. Okay, the Niners have a chance to sweep the Rams. The Seahawks have kind of owned the Cardinals the last 3 or 4 years, but that one loss by the Rams, remember at home on that 4th down play, which questioned everybody, and that was a kind of an undermanned, beat up 49ers team that went into SoFi Stadium and beat them on a Thursday night. So to me, this is a very, very important weekend for that division because you've got 3 teams that are top heavy. And 3 teams that certainly could be in the playoffs. And we just saw Seattle make a trade with the Saints to get Rashid Shaheed to add to their receiving core. Are we going to see all 3 teams in the playoffs? My goodness, when's the last time a division had 3 teams? That's right. It was the NFC North last year.
That's right.
And by the way, may I remind you, the NFC North had 3 playoff teams last year, and all of them were 1 and out.
That's true.
Yeah.
And the Vikings look like they're with a quarterback, they look like they've got a little bit more juice. We'll see what happens the rest of the year.
That was stunned. I thought of anything this weekend. I know a lot of people, Carolina, Green Bay. Carolina's gotten sneaky good
I wasn't surprised by that. I was surprised by how many people were surprised by it, though.
Well, Green Bay's hard to.
I don't think Green Bay doesn't do it for me. I know they have a good record, but I still think that they could be they're a one and done, maybe win a game in the playoffs, but they don't. Yeah, they don't strike me as like a team that puts fear in you on either side.
Well, I agree with that. Well, I think they win their first 2 games. They made the Micah Parsons trade, and everybody booked them for Santa Clara. And but wasn't it interesting this week that 2 teams with the best record in each conference both lost?
Yes. And regarding Carolina,
and the 1-win Colts.
I thought for sure like the 13.5 points, I think that was the spread for that game. That's absurd in today's NFL. I think if any double-digit spread, unless it's the Raiders, is kind of crazy.
Well, it wasn't interesting that Green Bay was favored by 13.5 and they scored 13.
There you go. Boom. So Steelers and Chargers play Sunday night. What will we get a Steelers defense that plays 4 full quarters? Every time I watch them now, and I love watching them, they're entertaining. I am kind of waiting for the wheels to fall off, though. Even with that Colts
Well,
game, I thought that
I think with the age of the Steeler players, it's more like the wheelchairs fall off. They certainly have them older. I'll tell you what struck me, and I think he did get called for at least one penalty. Jalen Ramsey has turned into a big time hitter. And I think they're using him a bit like they're really banged up at safety this weekend going in. And I think Jalen Ramsey was kind of all over the field in that regard. And but people have been, it's funny, there was so much made about the Steelers' age going into the season. There was so much made about Aaron Rodgers being a 41-year-old quarterback and how he would survive the season. And 9 weeks into the season, they're the only team in the AFC North that hasn't made a quarterback change.
wow.
Okay. And some of the AFC North teams have decided to give their quarterback to another
Swap
AFC North
quarterbacks.
team. Yeah, exactly. So
AFC North
it should be
swingers.
fun. The Chargers, for what it's worth, have turned over the ball at least once 8 games in a row.
That doesn't surprise me with Herbert at quarterback.
Well, Herbert, he threw a pick 6 last week. So
right. Monday night, Eagles-Packers, battle of playoff teams from last year, just like the Sunday night game. So Eagles-Packers, Eagles coming off a bye as well. I like the Eagles in this game just for that fact. But what do you see for this game as we close out the Week 10?
Well, what's funny is the Eagles have the same record right now they did at this time last year. Remember, they were 2-2 and then went on a long run and ended up 14-3. These are two very bizarre teams. Okay. The Eagles, in some ways, haven't figured out what they are offensively this year, but they still managed to win. The Packers haven't figured out what they are this year and now are finding ways to lose or tie and really kind of haven't recaptured that fire they had when they beat the Lions and then they beat the Commanders, who were 2 playoff teams from a year ago. The Cleveland game, this one against Carolina, the 40-40 tie with the Cowboys. So what are the Packers? The Packers have a lot of talented young players. I think they wouldn't hurt them to run the Josh Jacobs a little more. Now, do I do 5-1 or 1-5?
You got to do 5-1, but you can't. Zach and I discussed this off camera earlier. You can't name Dan Marino for all 5.
No. Well, I've got him in one spot, but some of the names, at least I think 2 of the names are going to surprise you.
So
it's also going to show. It's going to show how old I am too.
Before you start, we asked Chat GPT this very thing. So I have in my hand the list of the 5 greatest Dolphins according to Chat GPT. But let's go ahead and start with you.
Number 5, I have Dick Anderson, who was a safety for the Dolphins in the 1970s. Jake Scott and him were one of the premier safety tandems in the league. Jake Scott was Super Bowl VII MVP. Dick Anderson once had 4 interceptions in game, ran 2 back for touchdowns. It's funny because he's the only person I named from the no-name defense, but it's hard to name guys from a no-name defense when they're known for being no names.
That's right.
Does that make sense?
It does. For the record, ChatGPT does not have Dick Anderson in the top 5, but they did have him at number 9.
Okay. Well,
it did say crucial to the early 70s dynasty.
Well, we'll call this Chat PFG.
That's fine.
Okay.
Number 4.
Mark Clayton.
Ooh.
Watching him and Marino work together was absolutely sensational. During Dan's amazing year in 1984, he had 18 touchdown grabs.
Wow. Which in 1984, that's a lot.
Yeah. And Dan had 48 that year, but he had 18 of them. So he had one of the great wide receiver seasons. Then he was steady for that. It was the Marx brothers, Duper and Clayton. But I thought Clayton was kind of a notch above, and just sensational to watch.
We don't have we don't have Mark Clayton on the top 5 or even the top 10, but that doesn't mean that that it just means Chat GPT is wrong. So number 3.
Okay. All right. Number 3, I'm going to go with a guy who just went in the Hall of Fame recently. That would be Zach Thomas. He could sack the quarterback, knack for the big play. I remember that so dominant when Bill Parcells, back to Bill Parcells, was in that division with the Jets. He basically signed Kevin Mawai, who's now in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, to block Zach Thomas. If we're going to win, we need you to block. He's the center. He's the middle linebacker. And when it's funny, when Mawai went into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, one of the first people he talked about that should be in there is Zach Thomas, and then Zach Thomas went in. So I thought Zach Thomas was blood and guts, old school linebacker. Like I said, look up his sacks, look up his picks, his fumble recoveries. Overall, great player.
ChatGPT has him ranked at number 7.
Okay.
So at number 2, the guru says.
Number 2. This is a guy who began his career with the Browns, went to the Dolphins, and finished with the Browns. But incredibly, one of the greatest receivers in NFL history, Paul Warfield, who personified being a big play wide receiver. He didn't catch as many balls as these guys do now and so on, but I believe he left his career with 85 touchdown receptions. It was one of the top totals, top 20, top 30, 85, and a lot of big plays. Very gifted. I think, if I remember right, he made the NFL's top 100. And it's not it's not a name you hear a lot about, but I always kid about underrated Hall of Famers. To me, he's like Lenny Moore with the Colts and Bobby Bell with the Chiefs. I put Warfield in that list.
So you've got Warfield at 2. ChatGPT has Larry Zonka at 2. I think ChatGPT is.
I went back and forth with that. I would probably put Zonka at 6 because he personified the toughness of the 70s team and his style. He was Mike Allstott before there was Mike Allstott. Let's put it that way. That lower the head.
And the spelling of his name is kind of interesting too. That's always fun.
Yeah, what's funny about this list is, if you did a top 10, how many modern Dolphins would be on the list?
Not very many.
Not very many, if you really think about it.
Because at number 1, you guys are both in agreement on Dan Marino, obviously.
Yeah, of course. I remember it wasn't his rookie year. I do remember his rookie year. Came in a couple of relief appearances, started late in the year, helped get them to the playoffs. They got knocked off by the Seahawks in the divisional round at the Orange Bowl, and then 84. And they opened the season against Washington, who had been in the Super Bowl, and at RFK Stadium, 5 touchdown passes, and it just went from there. And up until that time, no one threw a ball like he did. He obliterated the touchdown pass record, even though he played more games. It was at that time, it was 36. He went through 48. Made his share of pick. He was very daring, but no one threw a ball like that. And of course, unfortunately, they got destroyed in the Super Bowl by the San Francisco 49ers.
I think Lost in Marino is in an era like where 80s, early 90s, where there's a lot of, that was like kind of the advent of like professional athletes being spokesmen. You had Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky, Bo Jackson. Marino actually had a pretty solid portfolio. I think he did isotoner gloves. He did the Slim Fast thing.
I have a very long Christmas shopping list. A whole football team that my career depends on. But my shopping is easy because they let me know exactly what they want. Isotoner gloves for men. I buy isotoners for the big guys and the super fast little guys and everyone in between. Because isotoners fit them all. So this Christmas, take care of the hands that take care of you. With isotoner gloves.
Way to go, Dan. Thanks a lot.
And then, of course, he was an Ace Ventura pet detective, which his role there was great, too. So definitely a pop culture Hall of Famer in my book.
Well, I will say this, and this is just from me going to the Hall of Fame for about 35 years, ceremonies. To this day, still,
they didn't induct you 35 times?
Well, I mean, observance of the crowd.
Right.
He went in, and funny, he went in the same year as Steve Young, 2005. And to this day, in terms of the crowd, and by this time now, it was in the stadium, not the steps of the hall. So, Jim Kelly changed that when he brought all his friends from Buffalo. I have never seen so many jerseys of one player in one place ever. Marino. And you think about it. He played at Pitt, so he was the local hero a couple hours away. Obviously, what he did with the Dolphins. And I think they also set a record for isotoner gloves that day.
They probably did.
People wearing them.
In 90-degree heat.
Day, right. I mean, even 20 years later, you go and, see the crowd. And, I'm usually in the press box, but sometimes I go down to the field. But that day when Marino went in, I was like, it was like cloning. Everybody had a Marino jersey on. Even some Pitt ones, too, as a matter of fact.
He's the pro football guru, Russell Baxter. We'll talk next week again, Russell. We appreciate the time and enjoy week 10.
We got it.
Stay tuned. I'll have details on how to enter, and we'll be announcing a winner later tonight.
Okay, it was a little long, and I think you flubbed on that last.
Did not flub at all.
No, it wasn't a flub. It was
There was no fucking flub. It was not a flub.
You want to see that playback?
No, come on, let's do it. Fuck it. But tonight, you'll get a chance to be my backup quarterback for a day. You'll get round trip, airfare, and tickets to a game, a complete uniform, and a chance to meet me. Stay tuned. I'll have details on how to enter, and we'll be announcing a winner later tonight.
Perfect.
Fuck it, send it in.
Okay. You want to see a playback on it?
Nope. I don't want to see shit.
Imig Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night.